Welcome back to Black Men Screaming. From coast to coast, from the Brooklyn Bridge to the San Francisco Gate Bridge. And joining us in conversation again is the beautiful and brilliant Miss Lorie Jones, Executive Director of Village Circle Incorporated. Welcome back, Miss Jones.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
And again, we always are glad to have you here with us. I'm troubled because when I look at Black people and I think about economics and I think about a society that touts a capitalist system that seems to be diametrically opposed to our existence. And we know that Blacks want to play by the rules and we want to succeed by the rules. And one of the things that we think about is entrepreneurship. We think about home ownership. But a recent article by Brenton Mock from City Lab talks about why Black businesses and home ownership won't close the wealth gap. And it looks at, several different studies that were done. And it doesn't seem to be encouraging for people when they look at this, because that's part of what Jones, they talk about the American dream, right? That white picket fence, that house, you owning your own business. The majority of people work for more small businesses in this country than they do for corporations. A lot of people don't know that. So when you see that we're seeking the American dream, we're trying to do those things, start our own businesses and buy our own homes, yet the wealth is not changing hands. That's not an encouraging message to the future of Black America.
Yeah, it's very discouraging. And I think what's even more discouraging is you have to look at the big picture. I mean, they quoted some statistics in the article and basically let you know that what's being proven is that anything in the Black community, it has had a detriment, no matter what the economic climate is, even when you it's been detrimental to people of color, even when the economic situation is the same for both Blacks and non-Blacks. And one of the things they talked about is first, if you looked at the homeownership situation, a lot of Blacks who had homes in their neighborhood after the stock market crash and the economy's decline, their property values decreased and continued to decrease, where they wound up having problems of being underwater or their homes not being of the same value that it was previously. But as the homes in white communities rose, and they looked at it and saw that, even if you looked at various segments of the white community, they rose by, $20,000 or $30,000 or whatever the case is, they were constantly appreciating as the economy turned. Black people in the Black community did not have the same benefit. And it's not, it wasn't stated exactly why, but just the mere fact that in certain communities, the Black communities did not recover from whatever detriment that they incurred due to the fall of the economy after things had long time supposedly increased. And in this day and age, as we constantly keep hearing about, allegedly how much the current administration has done for Black communities, when you look at statistics like this, it doesn't really make sense. We've already looked at the foreclosure, the fact that a lot of individuals in Black communities, Black homeowners, were purposely preyed on and foreclosed on prior to the full extent of the foreclosure crisis. But then now you add to that the fact that individuals who were not in that group or may or may not have been in that group still suffer, because if they did work hard and get home ownership, that they still weren't able to see their property appreciate the way it was in neighboring towns that were not predominantly Black.
And the thing that I want people to understand is that it's not just about the eyesight meaning that you're looking at these particular neighborhoods, because some of these particular neighborhoods are great neighborhoods. It is about the mind sight, and the mind sight being the way people interpret where you live by zip code and the way they value it. Because it's not us value, because Black people had the chance to determine the value of their homes based on where they lived at, I'm sure the valuation would be higher. But because someone else who has a biased opinion about where you live makes a determination about the value of where you live. And then you see that type of situation is connected to economics, because when we look at the situation where those sisters in Oakland took over those abandoned buildings in their particular communities, and what was happening in the Oakland community was you had a lot of these speculators from overseas, foreign speculators that were coming into the Oakland community, where the Black Panthers came from, and buying up the property and stuff and enforcing people out. So it wasn't value, because they decreased the value based on what they did to the community. The economic and social pressures they put on that community helped to decrease the values in that community. And then it was an opportunity for gentrification. So you see that. So when we talk about this particular situation about it's not moving the wealth gap, there are outside pressures that are being brought to bear on these communities that make the difference.
Yeah, and I remember we did that story not too long ago. It might have been 2 or 3 months ago, where we were talking about the real estate agents who were interviewing people to bring them into communities, and they were staring non-Black, staring whites out of Black communities, even to the extent of, I guess, giving up whatever profit they would get from the commission of the sale, where they actually videotaped individuals that were saying things like, well, you really want to walk around that community first. And nothing's wrong with giving people recommendations in terms of making sure that they would be comfortable in a particular environment. Most people, if they're renting, they'll do that. They'll go to the neighborhood, they'll look at it during the day, they'll come back and they'll look at it during the night. They'll see if there's anything that how close it is to subways and buses and things. They'll look at it to make an informed decision. Nothing's wrong with making an informed decision, but when you have biases that are introduced where people are now making it look like property that should be considered valuable is not considered valuable because of the color of the skin of the people living there, that's a problem. I remember when Jesse Jackson made that comment about the only difference between a project, the projects and a condominium is a mindset. Because you're looking at buildings that are basically the same, and it just depends on whether or not people, take care of their area, take care of their environment, don't throw dirt on the street, things of that nature, to make the area look like it is, for the good of the people. But the ongoing negative, the ongoing preoccupation with putting a negative connotation on neighborhoods of color is a major problem, not just, like you said, for real estate, but also for Black-owned businesses. The article specifically talks about the fact that they looked, even Yelp reviews, they looked at a study that showed that Yelp reviews have a positive correlation on the revenue that certain businesses have, restaurants and things of that nature. But for some reason, the businesses in the Black-owned neighborhoods, whether or not they were Black-owned or non-Black-owned, still did not do as well because they were physically located in a Black environment. That should be of a concern to most people, because it does speak to bias and prejudice if you're not judging the quality of the business that you patronize, but you're judging the neighborhood and the environment that it's in.
Yeah, and part of the problem with that is the thing that Mark Claxton, who we love dearly, and has been a frequent contributor to the show, talks about the philosophy that the white man's ice is colder than the Black man's ice. Ice is ice. It makes no difference in who you get it from, but the perception is that it is colder in other communities, and we have to also look at our own responsibility about supporting Black-owned businesses and utilizing them, and getting the good word out about them, and accessing these sites like Yelp and putting the good word out there. Because we know that if other communities are actually putting information out there. Now, we also all know, is every review an actual review? Do businesses put out false information to denigrate another business? Of course, that's part of what people do in business. So we have to make sure that when we find these excellent businesses within the Black community, that we not only support those businesses, but we also get the word out about them, and we also let these organizations that are rating them know how excellent they are.
And not just that, they even, I mean, on the radio, you constantly hear about there's a business that actually is supposed to do some sort of marketing where they can get rid of negative reviews online, or I guess counteract them with positive. You know, people fill reviews with fake reviews, you know, not real customers, but, you know, people who are giving 5 stars to make it look like it's a good business. There are ways that the industry has gotten to get around certain things, but just if you look at the statistics, I mean, the mere fact that a study can show that it doesn't matter whether or not you're a Black-owned business in a Black neighborhood or a white-owned business in a Black neighborhood, that you cannot enjoy the same benefits of increased revenue from positive Yelp reviews as in a white neighborhood. You know, and that's all the more reason why, you know, I don't want to deviate too much, but that recent story about the honey pot, the woman, the Black woman who started the feminine care products, plant-based feminine care products, and then did a Target commercial explaining how she was so happy Target helped her with the marketing, et cetera, and that her product is now in Target being promoted. And she specifically said during Black History Month that she was proud to be able to step up and do this, and that she hopes that, you know, the success of her company or the promotion of her company or the support that Target's given her will encourage any other young Black girl, you know, who sees that this is possible. And all of a sudden she started being bombarded with comments about being racist and all kinds of things, when all she was doing was expressing pride in being a Black-owned business. And that's something that I think we need to make sure that does not deter people, you know, or does not allow people to be deterred, because I don't think anyone should have to defend having a sense of pride in their culture. And that's the only thing that she did, and that's something that's probably even more necessary given the statistics that we're looking at in this article about the need for Black-owned businesses to have to do more to promote themselves in order to be supported.
Again, and just to reiterate in terms of the idea about outside forces and the impact they might have on communities, there was a person that was quoted in the article. I think her name was Ann Price, and I think she's like the president of the Insight Center for Community Economic Development. She made a statement that I thought was very interesting. And she said, case in point, the same systems that help Black families buy homes and open businesses are the ones that foreclose on those homes and businesses, particularly during the housing and financial crashes of 2008. Price report points out that after the housing market collapsed, cities with large Black populations began increasing their reliance on criminal fines and court fees to plug budget holes, which in many places had a disproportionate effect on African Americans, passing laws that eliminated voter suppression, strengthening labor laws, dissolving mass incarceration, and curbing corporate power. All the myriad ways in which forces have extracted wealth from African Americans is the most important emphasis, Price argues.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate that you know, people who were affected by the foreclosures now were put upon again in terms of fines and things of that nature. It's interesting you mentioned that, because just yesterday people were circulating on the internet the fact that now ticketing, you know, is being a big thing here in New York, where there are fines between $100 and $300 for garbage strewn on the street, which most people don't have control over, you know, because if you sweep up your front and then go to work and then garbage blows down the street during the day, you know, to have somebody come and start ticketing you, you know, between $100 and $300 for garbage on your block is ridiculous. And you and I have spoken about, even when I think it was during the Michael Brown situation, where they were talking about the fact that there are a lot of individuals that were further put upon in Ferguson, where they were now using ticketing to help support the court system and to raise money for the state, things of that nature. It's problem on top of problem, and that's something that people really shouldn't stand for. They should fight against and shouldn't stand for.